strongest of the beers.
Bock.
Strong beers in general. The very strong ones, you might have to get up to about 12 to 14%. And eventually as you get into mead judging too, you're going to find that. Okay? Legs on the beer. Excellent. Anything else? I have one that sometimes I like to throw in too. It depends a little bit as far as how careful the pour is. But consider this also. I don't see anything here as far as how much head in the appearance, but consider that beer poured was 2/3 head, even pouring carefully. Okay, that's certainly a visual. Okay, it's not so much that the beer was necessarily gushing, but if you have a beer that's going to be all foam, that's going to hint at the very least, a very high carbonation level, a gusher. And sometimes you will find that it's going to take a while before you can sip a beer because beer poured was all head. Okay? Yeah, you can throw that in there too. That just helps to fill out the score sheet, as really that's all I'm kind of showing you how to do, how to fill up the score sheet more. Flavors. While these should mimic the aroma characteristics, under other flavors, maybe there's a couple more. There's some things that you just don't necessarily smell.
Just a quick appearance question.
Yep, great.
Sometimes, you get carbonation on a beer that's got those really tiny, fine, natural carbonation bubbles, and then you have other ones that have like the big forced carbonation, and it has an impact on the mouthfeel and on the appearance of the beer. Is that something you talk about in appearance, or?
If you're feeling that, which of course is carbonation, you have to feel that, by all means put that in. But if you're detecting like, oh, there's different sized bubbles, that relates to appearance. So in a way, some of those characteristics, the foaminess, so to speak, shows up in those two sections. What you're seeing for foaminess, what you're feeling for foaminess, okay? And yes, I still see this too in competitions or score sheets. Somebody coming on the carbonation and the appearance. Doesn't make sense. What you're seeing is foam. Yes, and I can relate to that a bit, but you gotta say how much of for the mouthfeel. And yes, I've seen some very strange score sheets even commenting on carbonation in the aroma. You can believe that? I'll dig that out sometime. And then he commented on the carbonation in the appearance. Under mouthfeel, all he said was good mouthfeel. This was a national level judge. He needs to go back to school maybe. Okay?
Well, I see what she's saying though. Like there's some
the effect of carbonation is an appearance.
Yeah, you
definitely.
feel big bubbles, especially in like some of the American lagers. You got the racing up to the top.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. It tends to be those all malt beers that have the more creamy texture. The adjuncts seem to break that up a little bit too. But those are good things to put under appearance too, even as you divide that up a little bit more. The texture. What are the bubbles like? Okay? Foaminess, the creaminess, the mousse-like quality. And yeah, if the beer was 3/4 foam, that hints at the brewer that, well, maybe you had a contamination issue, you put in too much priming sugar. Okay? Good other appearance things. Under flavor, for other flavors, DMS, phenols, alcohol, something that you really can't detect in the flavor. Consider this. Mineralization. The hardness of the water influences the flavor, and sometimes you can kind of taste a certain mineralization. Typical, of course, of British-style beers, especially if they're from the source. Something like complexity. Aroma can be complex. Okay, I understand that. It's going to more likely show up in the flavor section of a more complex style. Okay, the barley wines, the imperial stouts. Consider that complexity, or lack of. What would we call lack of complexity? Do I have a good term for that? Bland is a good one.
Are we in, flavor?
Yeah. A good opposite for complexity is one-dimensional. Probably all heard that phrase before. Hey, this is a one-dimensional beer. Could be a little more complex, and then you give some hints for improvement, okay? So consider that complexity, in some cases, is worth commenting on the flavor section. Or even lack of, which you would call blandness or one-dimensional quality. And flavor section, anything else? Most of them are going to be found in the aroma section anyway. I got a little soundtrack there now.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be bland if it's one-dimensional, right? Because you could have a beer that's like huge malt, but that's it, just huge malt.
Correct. Absolutely. That's a very good point. Okay. It lacks complexity, but it's got that huge malt character, very full flavored. Yeah, there's nothing like a one-dimensional beer when you got everything else going on in it. Well, you have a characteristic that's so strong that it's not bland. But that helps as far as other flavor, so to speak. Okay. How about commenting a little bit more on balance? I did cover this earlier. You can see that the flavors are well married or in unison, or commenting on what the dominant flavor was. So that's two ways of looking at balance. Okay. Use one or the other, both if you need to, but you always should be able to point out dominated by, or even just slightly dominated by the malt character, or needs a little more hops to balance, that sort of thing. Likewise, beer can have a wonderful balance just because all the flavors are all together on you. Okay. Mouthfeel. This one has an other as well. What other mouthfeel characteristics can you think of? You can go ahead and remember that sheet that I had earlier in color so you can find it quickly on explaining mouthfeel. Yes, I do have one. That would be for Tracy. I got more handouts for you eventually, but there are other mouthfeel characteristics. Makes it easy to find, doesn't it? So throw out some other mouthfeel characteristics. Okay. Anybody think of one? Got the list in front of you there. Nothing yet?
Slickness.
Slickness, thank you. That's a major one there too. Slickness is a feeling. Slickness on the tongue can come from what characteristic? Diacetyl, excellent. You can pick up diacetyl in the aroma, flavor, and mouthfeel. It's a great thing to add onto your T1 answer, okay? 3 different ways that diacetyl can be perceived. And suppose that you're picking up a small amount of diacetyl in the aroma and flavor. You might even comment that no slickness in the mouthfeel, despite some diacetyl detected in the flavor. It's not so much that you always have to comment on no diacetyl felt, okay? But as appropriate, as it fits, as you feel that you want to expand on it. Slickness is a mouthfeel characteristic. What else is a mouthfeel characteristic? Something that deals with carbonation. How about carbonic bite? Carbonic bite will be typical of a very highly carbonated beer, okay? The American light, like American pale lagers. Carbonation is so high that you feel it as a bite on your tongue, okay? There's a few others listed as well too, but as needed to, you'll have a few more things to look at, okay? Here are some more tips for filling up the spaces. You have everything addressed into the cues under the headers. You can provide some feedback for each of the section. For instance, a certain summary in a way. Wonderful aroma, beautiful appearance, full flavored, pleasingly full mouthfeel. Also the phrase appropriate to style can be fit in about anywhere. It gives feedback to the brewer and lets them know that they're on track. Okay? Just make sure that you're specifically describing the characteristics too. I've seen that also on score sheets where all it says is appropriate appearance. Mouthfeel good to style. That's not describing. That is feedback, however. You need to comment on each of those. Okay? Avoid writing on the backs of the exam score sheets, but in competitions that's fine. Use the space under the lines in each category if needed, and be neat, as handwriting is meant to be read and not solved. For the exam, you will have a slightly different score sheet, okay? You won't have the descriptors on the side, and while it used to be 2 score sheets on a page, they're individual now. It's probably a very good thing too because the lines are a little bit longer for helping to fill up. So that gives us a